Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sisto Says, powered by Design 2147, a New York City building code expediting firm. I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Gabrielle Benazzi of Benazzi Engineering. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Sisto.
It's always good to have you
Always
back.
good to be with you.
So it's good to see you, Gabrielle. You know, you and I, we talk about the power of people. You know, we crazy story. We met many years ago through Dominic, my partner, who happened to find you on LinkedIn. And we reached out to you. You reached out to us. And we went and had a wonderful lunch.
Beautiful.
At the Columbus Foundation. And we hit it off. We realized that we had mutual things going on, and your firm being in the engineering world, being in the special inspection world, we became friends. I became friends with your husband, Gregory, who is the licensed engineer of the firm. And lo and behold, you know, we've been friends and colleagues ever since. So thank you for taking the time out to come in and talk to us.
Sisto.
You're quite welcome. So here we are. You know, you tell us a little bit about where you were, what you're doing at Benazzi these days, and you know, what's your focus on the type of projects you're going after. And, you know, part of the show is to talk about, you know, what you guys do and how it relates to the building code and, you know, keeping places safe and
Yeah, so Benazzi Engineering was my, mentioned my husband, he's the licensed engineer. His background was design. So I was working for a smaller special inspections agency, and I saw that if we put that together, we would benefit as far as like the quality on the jobs, because he has so much of a background of what the engineers are looking for, what the construction team's looking for.
because he was on the design
Yeah.
end, not on the special inspection.
Exactly. So he can kind of wear both hats and be a little bit more helpful as far as time management, pushing the projects along. I did business development for about 10 years. We started Benazzi, and it's been sort of a whirlwind. I primarily focus on the clients, quality assurance of the clients, but also managing the projects. So I think people like to have a point person. Communication is so important.
Well, because there's a lot of scheduling, there's a lot of things going on that they're looking for this particular inspection on this particular day.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you have 500 inspectors. You gotta, you know, you gotta fit them in, and you're always trying to make sure that your schedule and their schedule can work. And that's a big part of it, you know, and a big part of what you do. You know, I always say, you know, one of my things is part of our job here at Design is to make sure that we're working with developers, with architects, with engineers, with contractors about upholding the building code. And a big part of what you do for the audience is being given the responsibility of a special inspector is for you to be the eyes and ears of the building department.
Exactly.
It's not subjective. It's based on a book called the New York City Building Code. So I know that these days the building department has given a lot more freedom to relinquishing inspections because the city just can't do it. And one of them happens to be tenant protection plans. So
Yes.
that is a big part of the permit process. Does your firm do that? And what does it really mean? And what does it really entail?
Absolutely. You know, you always pass by all the job sites. You see TPP posted, and you just walk right by, you breeze by. But then you see something laying on the ground, the wood, the material they're leaving out, and you're like, that's not safe for the tenants that are entering the building, or is this being properly managed? Just like every other project and every other inspection, our job is to ensure the safety of the job and that things are being properly executed in the field. So as far as the tenant protection, that was newly introduced in November.
Right, where they've changed the rules. It was always around, but they changed the rules.
Now they're requiring that anytime that it's done for a residential property, that you have a third-party inspector there.
Correct. So just to be clear on that, you know, my understanding is that if you have a residential building and you're doing a boiler, so we'll use boilers because we do a lot of boilers. You do a lot of boilers, right? Engineering, right? And you say, well, it's a boiler, but the boiler may get dismantled. It's got to get pulled out. Where are they taking it out?
Exactly.
Are they obstructing the egress? Are they leaving stuff in the hallway that when the people, God forbid, there's an evacuation, they're running out and they can't get out? Well, years ago, it was kind of common sense. But now there is someone who's accountable. You have to go to the site once a week and make sure that they're adhering to it. If there's a complaint, your firm is on, your firm has the responsibility to go to the site, send, an agent of yours or even, the licensed professional out to the site to say, look, you can't leave all the cardboard boxes in the hallway while you're putting the boiler together because people need to get out.
And I also think it's nice for us as the special inspectors because typically that's just one inspection that we're doing amongst many others.
Right.
So for us to be there on a weekly basis, seeing the faces of the construction manager, you build a relationship with them. So if they have questions, if we're not even there for an inspection that day, we can see something that's ahead of it and kind of talk to them right then and there when we're on the site.
And it's funny that, we sometimes get, the backlash and sometimes people like to vent to us. And the best part about my job is that I get to say, well, but that's the law. And I love that because, it just added another $500 a week on our job. I go, it did, but it saved you millions if someone got hurt or your insurance claims go through the roof because people aren't adhering to the proper laws of a tenant protection. So, we see it in two different places, right? We see it as tenant protection plan in residential buildings where they're doing work. We see it in occupancy plans where they're commercial buildings and we got a partial TCO, but yet we couldn't finish the whole building, but we had to open the school up or we had to open a portion of the building. Well, now we have occupancy plans where we file with the building department, we show them how we're phasing it, and then someone like your firm works with the general contractor on behalf of the owner to say, hey, you guys said you're sectioning this off. Where are the people going? We need this egress. We need the materials stored here. So I think kudos to the building department. I think they've done a much better job with this. I think
agree.
they've established a way for firms like your firm to do that.
Yeah.
So do you see that part of your business on the rise?
Oh, yeah. I would say that this past year, that's been something that's evolved in itself. Because we're just out there, so much more. So we're starting, prior to any type of mobilization on the job site, we're there. And, we're getting a sense of where the direction is of the job and
what's going to be needed throughout that process. So, a lot of firms that are in the special inspection world, they specialize in doing, your competition probably. They do these big new buildings. Your firm seems to be in a different...
We found our niche.
Yeah, and your niche is similar to ours, which is a lot of HBD type buildings. I know we worked on a project together where it was a cluster of 15, 16 buildings. They needed fire stopping. They needed this. They needed that. They needed all these kind of things. So, for me, I always look at your firm to say, wow, that's a lot of money that they spend, right? A lot of people say, oh my God, expediting, whatever. But your side of it is, you have a big responsibility in making sure that a pipe is fire stopped properly. These are things that make better quality of life for the people that are going to live there in these buildings for the foreseeable future. And it's not just fire stopping. It's, ventilation. It's structural. They're going to be, they open up a wall. One of the things we talked about off air is, with rehab, it's much different than clearly new building. So, you get in a building, it says, hey, we need to replace this lintel on the window. Okay, great. Now they open it, it's all rusted. The brick is all flaking on the right, on the left. Oh my God, we got to do this. And all of a sudden your firm is there, right. They're there to make sure that not only that whatever could have not been seen prior to, your role is to advise, right? So take us through that. They open it up, they see the lintel, it's all rusted out, but wow, all the brick is falling apart. They need possibly, shoring. So take us through
repair. When we're going through, let's say we get the plans and we see what's being done, the renovations are. Of course, we don't know what the existing conditions are. So as soon as something's opened up, typically we always send the licensed engineer on site the day that anything's being opened up. Greg will go out there, he'll take a look, and then from there he'll see what the quality is. Well, is this going to be further work that's needed? Is this going to be a replacement?
Is it within the original scope or is it extended
and then from there, it's just revisiting it to the engineer of record. We go back to the design engineer.
Oh, absolutely.
We usually put, we wouldn't put it down as a nonconformity or anything, but we have to let them know what we're seeing on site. We take visuals. We include pictures in all of our reporting.
The beauty today is that everything is easy.
I know.
Back in the day, you took a camera, you'd have to go to the, now instantaneous, you can take a photo and send it to the engineer and say, hey, I'm on site. This doesn't look so great. I think we should hold off.
Yeah, we're not going to disrupt anything. What do you want us to do moving forward? And then they'll come back to us and let us know, okay, we have to, we're going to have to do a replacement. We're going to have to see how, what else is needed. And then from there, we can kind of advise as what inspections are going to be needed from that work and how much more we think it is.
Right. And I think, being a smaller to mid-sized firm versus a bigger firm, there's pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
The pros is that it's really hands-on. The engineer who's actually...
Cons are it's really hands-on.
Right. And I think there's an added value to that.
It is.
Sometimes, firms get really big and they got hundreds of people working for them and they're working on these really huge projects. And it's not to devalue that it's different. Your niche is completely different. It's on a smaller scale, but with the same set of responsibilities. That the responsibility didn't change.
Yeah.
The liability didn't change either.
Exactly. And that's what I always say when we're talking to our clients, and especially now the beauty of it is that you work for the owners. So you let them know that you're ensuring the value and the safety and that the work is being done properly in the field so that they don't have any hiccups. It doesn't cost them any extra money out of their pocket. Because at the end, I feel like that's a big portion of the rehabilitation projects is just staying on budget and timelines.
Without a doubt. And plus they know, they know automatically that there are going to be contingencies. So, it leads us to one of my big topics on the podcast, which we have dove into as a firm starting a few years ago, which is office to residential conversion. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that we spoke about with some of the guests was, so how do you take into account what you think is there versus what's not there? And one of the examples that Lou Madigan gave was we went into a building. It was an office building, and they went into the ceilings, and the previous owner in New Jersey never ran the walls up to the underside of the slab. So the entire footprint had no rated walls. If a fire started, it would have went over the top of the ceilings through the whole place. Well, they assumed when they bought it that they could leave the core up and other walls because they were rated right. When they pulled the ceiling down, all of a sudden they got a massive change order that they had to give the contractor to continue to rip all the sheetrock out, put 2 layers of 5X. So, that is a big deal. So office to residential conversion is a place where the city is promoting it. And we feel that it is a place where we're going to be getting projects. And we have 2 right now on the plate. We have multiple more that we're bidding right now. And it seems to be a similar niche to what your firm does, which is it's an 80,000 square foot building. We're going to gut the whole thing, and we're literally going to leave the frame and the facade. Mm-hmm. How would you approach a project like that? Like, what would you be telling the owner to be aware of as a special inspector to have concerns?
Well, first of all, is the team that you've already comprised. That's so important. And it comes down to just even having a conversation with you. Who's your expediting team? Who's overseeing the project? Who's the design team for you? And are they guiding you along and putting you in the proper individuals? You brought up fire protection. Are they having a fire-rated company come out and doing that? Or are they just having the contractor, slap on the ratings for that?
Right. The quality and the control.
It's the quality, it's the control, and ultimately that's what our biggest focus is. And we try to just have everything laid out. What do we need so that we have everything, all of our ducks in a row? Do we have all the submittals for the equipment that's being installed? Have we laid out dates for everything of when the installations are going to be? What materials are you using?
Right.
Are they
removals,
approved?
The new install, whatever it might
everything.
be. Because there's also a lot of controlled inspections that are required while they do the demo. Structural stability, shoring, especially on these type of buildings, we may be taking parts of the facade off. We may be cutting a core right down the middle of the building.
But even when you think about like smaller scale things that we don't often think of, like vestibules, like the ratings of that.
Of course.
Especially when you have people, entering and exiting, and that makes a huge difference. And we've seen even the smallest complications of that were just overlooked.
Right.
Because someone's not really inspecting
we didn't really treat it as an exit passage. We treated it as a vestibule. No, it's an exit passage.
Yeah.
It needs a different rating than what you're showing on the drawing. So, there's a lot of those code compliant things that we get asked questions during construction. They're like, this doesn't sound right. No, go to this section of the code. This is okay.
And that's when I would say it always comes back to the team you're comprising and them really having the knowledge and the experience so that they can, properly guide you. It makes everything just move forward smoother. And when you have one point person who's constant communication that you can go to for not just the quality of the work, but reporting back to you and consistency.
Right, communicating.
And that's
communication is key.
It's key. And that's
in everything.
That's what I love to do.
I'm a communicator.
Yeah, and I love overseeing the projects and working with the clients. And you brought up the commercial renovations and the gut rehab jobs. For that, it's sometimes we tend to just have like a larger scale of people that we're corresponding with. So for us to right away have an idea of who we're talking to on a daily basis, who we need to report to, what they expect from us, expectations, how they want to be communicated with. That's so important.
No doubt. No doubt. And listen, there is a constant topic on the podcast that always comes up, and it's called communication. To me, in today's day and age, it's easier to communicate, but it's not. And you're going to say, well,
yes.
We have cameras. We could take a picture and send something. Today, perfect example here at my building, a good friend of mine who's a roofer. He is an exceptional roofer. He's been doing roofs since he's a kid with his grandfather and his dad. They have a great company, no shortcuts. He came here and he told me that the penetrations through the roof just got beat up. They're 15 years old, so he came and used the best product, the Power Pro, got up there, took care of it all. I still had a leak. So he came back and he, within a few hours, he sent me photographs of exactly where the water was coming in within an hour. And he said, Sisto, it's not a roof problem, it's a ductwork problem. You need to rewrap your ductwork. This is where but not only was he here, he took the pictures, he sent them. I got them to my partner. My partner got to the mechanical guy, and it's already in progress.
Yes.
But yet, you'll have someone come, take the pictures, not communicate them immediately, and you're following up for a week for someone to say, so what happened? What you were here last week. What happened? And the same. So yes, there is technology, but there has to be the desire to communicate.
Yeah.
And in your business and in our business, communication is key. But I think it's true for all businesses. So logistically, coordinating all your special inspections, going out, reporting them to the owner, saying, hey, we were at your site, we saw this. We told the contractor to make sure that he cleans this up, but this is unacceptable. And for us, I go to some job sites, I call the general contractor and say, I'm coming. A lot of them say, well, sister, don't post any pictures unless we see them first. And I get that. It's not my job. My job was just to show that the building is getting done. But everyone, because something that you think is just a simple photograph can become something that, not that there's something wrong going on, but who are you to just come to a job site and take pictures, and that's changed.
That has changed. But I would say, I think it has to do with, again, like circling back with how you're corresponding with your clients. Is that what they're looking for? And I think the photos are really important because it also shows the progress.
Exactly.
And it helps the contractors too, because for them, if they started something and they call us up and say, Gabrielle, we forgot to call you out there, but it's still open. Can I take a photo of it? They take that photo. At least I have something right now before I can get the engineer out there.
Right, he might be there in a few hours, right. Well, like I said, today with the roofing stuff, he took that picture. We knew exactly where it was. We sent it to the mechanical contractor. We can resolve the water leak, within reason versus lack of communication taking you to the next place. So, talking about communication, right? One of the big things here in New York City, which I'm sure you're up against, is, Local Law 97. We're all going to electric. I
hear it all day long.
All day long, and it's always a topic. So we do
mechanical engineer as a husband.
Exactly, and I'm sure he is probably a Local Law 97 nerd because there's a lot of us, So, one of the big topics is we've had some engineers on, and I just did a Q&A this week with Steve from New Age Engineering, and we talked about boiler conversions. And great great young guy.
Really is.
Very knowledgeable. And I also did one with Jared Foreman from KOW, and he did it more on sustainability. Steve's doing it with me on boilers. Are you seeing a large amount of, what's your company seeing in terms of fossil fuels versus electric? And, and I'm sure Greg is really deep into it, but so you may not be the subject matter expert, but you've been hearing it for a while.
Oh, yeah. I think I would say that the thing that we've been seeing is just timeline. I think it's going to take them a long time to try to get that push to have everyone transition.
Sure.
And I think that's the major thing. And also, it's costs. And we're talking to those building owners who are doing those renovations. A lot of it, I think the ultimate question is, at least for Greg, is how are they going to get everyone to do this? Like, how is it, how is the push?
I think if you were to ask me that question as the host, right? And you're asking me the question, I that's great. I think that from my expertise and my communication with a lot of people is the government and the city are going to have to give some of these homeowners and landlords tax incentives. There are some available, but they're, from what I'm hearing, is they're marginal, right? So perfect example is you have a building, your boiler's ready to crap out. You got 6 years to decide whether you're going to rip that boiler out. Am I going to put the Mitsubishi, the split units in now? Am I going to upgrade my electric now? And now, this is what is happening. It's not just I need the units. I need more power from Con Ed. I may have to change my panels and my metering. Right? I then have to get this electric through my building. I got to disrupt all my apartments because they're not powered for this. Those old,
Oh, yeah.
There's no way, right? Then I got to buy the units. I got to put the units in. It's not, okay, pull my boiler out, put in a new boiler,
but
and
also
I'm done.
it's like, and how does this impact the overall industry, all of the employment? Or I mean, we're talking like right now, the plumbers, the engineers, all these cogen systems. We work with so many companies that's strictly what they do. They just install cogen systems all day long, big, small. And I think that's like a big question I have too.
Yeah, I mean, cogen is, really where, and one of the things that Steve and I talked about is, so when are they just going to make a retrofit electric boiler? Is there a way that we could heat the water with leaving the box there and just, instead of heating it with a fire under it, we heat it with a coil? Can we do that without having to rip everything out?
Yeah.
Just pull, and the answer is, in the future, I think that's because right now your only alternative is really to pull the boiler out, pull all the radiators out. They have some other stuff to get the radiators to be more efficient so you're not using as much heat. But they're definitely, it's a bigger project and a much more expensive one. So, we're definitely seeing a lot of that. So I'm curious,
I think what we've been seeing is the same thing, and just it's just worrying about when when the dust settles. As far as like in the industry itself, we feel like it's just going to be like a war of the worlds.
Yeah.
And trying to see
listen,
how everyone moves with it.
You make a valid point that, one sector is going to benefit.
Yeah.
Electricians, mechanical contractors, but plumbers,
it's going to be hurting.
Well, they're not going to be pulling any gas lines. They're not going to be doing a lot of things. So, I know there's exemptions. I know there's size exemptions to all of this. But eventually, I think they're starting with the low-hanging fruit, but eventually those exemptions are going to get less and less too. It's just a matter of them, and I think that the first pass at this, what they thought of at the beginning and what it's going to turn into in 5 or 6 years, we're going to see how it's got to play out, because maybe it's too strict. Maybe the exemptions are going to go in the other directions. Maybe they're going to get tougher. We don't know.
And I feel like it's like anything else, and not to bring it, direct it back to inspections, but look at energy code.
Right.
Look how that's evolved over the years.
Yeah.
It was something that people just, it brushed aside. It was nothing.
Right.
And now that's its own beast.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. And rightfully so. Because, we in New York City, there are laws, there is compliance, everyone should comply. But again, when you mandate something, it costs money.
Yeah.
It costs money to go rip out every single light fixture in your building. It costs money to rip every one of your windows out. It costs money to redo your roof. Some people just can't do it.
No, I know.
And that's where, I think that in the next few years we're going to see how this all plays out. Yeah, without a doubt. I think there's a big opportunity for all different sectors because it will create economy. It will create growth of work.
Yeah.
It's just going to be in different sectors. It may not be the plumber, but it's going to be someone else. It's going to be the mechanical guy.
And as far as the niche that we're in, like rehabilitation projects and gut rehab, like seeing all those jobs, that's something that, we're going to probably see more pop up. It's just how are we going to respond to that and what's going to be needed on the job site.
100%. But one of the things I wanted to circle back is you mentioned cogen. So where are you seeing? Are you seeing that more in the residential world where there's a bunch of buildings and they go into a cogen? Are you seeing it more? Like for us, we see it on the university side. We've done a bunch of cogens. We've done a few on some large, pretty new buildings, but they already forecasted that, hey, you know what? We're going to go to cogen now.
I think originally, same. We were working with the universities. I was seeing it in the hospitals, more, larger scale buildings, commercial. But I have seen a little bit of a shift where I think it's starting to go to residential.
Really?
Yeah.
That's positive.
It is.
It's really positive.
It's actually shocking because we didn't really see that. And I only say that because it all plays in a role in it with the TPP inspections.
Right.
Because first thing we'll see is we need someone to put in place a TPP design and TPP inspections. They're trying to get someone on board.
Well, again, with cogen, you're bringing in a lot of equipment. You're putting in different types of turbines and things like that.
And then you're starting to see them in residential spaces. So that's something that's just new.
Well, that's great.
Us.
That's really a great topic. So on the show.
Okay.
At the end of towards the end of the podcast, we always quote one of my dear friends, Andrew Peters from Curry and Brown. He's an estimator, and I always tease him. I said, "You got the greatest job in the world. You could always be right or always be wrong, but nobody's ever happy, right? Because his job is to look at something today and forecast 3 years from now if they're going to spend $10 million, are they spending $10 million? So he always has a saying that he doesn't like to look in the rearview mirror. This is what we spent last time, but this is what he always says we got to look forward. So here we are today, just before the holidays in 2023, in the rehab world that you're in. What's your forecast? Where do you see the work? Do you think we're going to have a pipeline of work coming? What sector do you think is going to be the place where it's going to pick up the biggest steam? Is it office to residential conversion? Is it, in the boiler world? Is it related to Local Law 97? Where do you think the pipeline of work for your firm is going to come from?
To be honest, I think it's going to be a little bit of everything right now because there's so many changes going on within the city. But I think we're going to see a lot of commercial conversions. We're going to see that.
Well, because the retail's pulled back. All of that is, that's changed a lot too.
Yeah.
And the office buildings being vacant, and everyone who is coming into the city are going to Class A new office buildings. They don't want to go into the older ones because they're not efficient. They're not updated. So
I think that might be what I would forecast to see in 2024. And then just the continued growth of all of the new inspections that are coming.
They're adding more.
Yeah.
So give me an example of that as we wind it down. Like, I know they've expanded the TPP, and I know we get the updates and we can see the changes in special inspections. They've made some more stringent, which require more. It was an inspection already there, but now they've added layers to do more. So they've passed more responsibility and liability on the special inspection.
They have. I think the most recent changes that we've seen a shift in is more focused on the new buildings as far as requirements go from the special inspections agencies, the Class 1. Primarily, we do Class 2 work. We stick with got renovations.
Right. Existing buildings.
Existing buildings, yeah. And I think there we won't see as far as many changes of what's required on like the technical side. I think that's going to stay. I think it's just going to be a little bit more evolved. We're going to see changes of how they split the inspections into their own. I think that's something that I would forecast, which they've already done when you look at any of the mechanical scope, how they've
The mechanical's changed a lot.
It's sort of branched out into their own little items.
Well, then you add the tenant protection, you add all the energy code.
Yeah.
So your industry as a whole has picked up a lot. We had a show about vibration. We had a show about gaining access into buildings. That's a lot of what you got.
Oh, I would have loved to talk about that.
That's a tough one because
really
a lot of developers are complaining that they have to go to court, they got to get injunctions, the client won't let them in to take video, the client won't let them put monitors on their building, and that's all part of what the law requires, that you do pre-inspections so that you avoid litigation, you avoid staying out of court, and it protects the existing building, and it also protects the new developer, right? Or and you're not exempt because you're doing a rehab, because we have jackhammering, we have this, we have that. We have other things that can affect the building next door, and a lot of our sites, they're affected by landmark buildings. We got tunnels underneath the ground in front of us, so a big part of that is access agreements, and they're...
That's so important. I feel like that's something that no one really talks about. So that's interesting that was a whole topic.
I think the reason a lot of people are talking about it is because they end up having to go to court and they lose 3-4 months when the law says you need to do it. There should be an easier way. And I'm talking about being pro developer and being pro homeowner or condominium board that's next door, that the law is there to protect you, not to hurt you.
Yeah, and I think for being a special inspections agency, the worst thing you can hear from one of your clients is that the adjacent property is asking for you to do monitoring. Because when they're calling for that means the next thing that's down the pipeline is potential of legal issues coming into play.
Because if it was all part of it at the beginning, which nowadays, it was funny when we were talking to Tim DeMayo from Viber Analysis, he said that the code says that you require it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't tell you how much. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's a perfect example that they understand that you need to get data to make sure that the building is not moving. But do you put 1 or do you put 50? Where MTA says, hey, you're in our tunnel. It's 1 every X amount of feet. They mandate it. Where our code doesn't tell you how many you need. Mm-hmm. So then it goes back on to a firm like yours that says, hey, on this size and this much square footage of facade, we'd like to see 15 of them.
Yeah.
So even though it's there, it's still gray, And so, yes, access agreements are... when you come back for the next show,
I know
we could do access agreements.
I like it.
We're probably going to be talking a lot more about energy code. I think that's a place, and hopefully.
Also, sorry, Sisto. What would be interesting is for people to have an understanding of the difference between progress inspections and special inspections, because I think that a lot of the clients that we work with, they don't have an understanding of that.
Right. One is, just to elaborate, right?
Yeah.
One is, hey, while you're building, I need to be part of this. And then a special inspection has a different set of rules.
Yes.
And so actually that would be awesome. What I would love to do is I'm going to give you and Gregory a list of about 9 or 10 questions.
I would love that.
And we're going to do a Q&A for our audience about progress inspections versus special inspections, because we get that question.
A little 101.
And we get it asked all the time.
That's like a big one, I think. And it goes into everything, because it goes into budgeting, it goes into understanding, especially on those, going back to those large jobs where you have 40 buildings, the first question they have is, how many times do you have to be out here for this? Or when do I have to call you for this?
Right. And in your industry, sometimes, because my industry has some of this, is, you didn't give us a not to exceed price. And we say to them, well, we don't know until we open your plans and we look at it. We got a budget. And in your business, oh, well, why'd you come out 7 times? Well, we came out 7 times because you called me one time for the window. You called me last time for the column. Then you called me for the joist that was sagging on the roof. You know, in rehab, you keep opening things. You're going to, things come out.
Yes.
And it spirals. And what budget you may have given them actually, depending on the site conditions, turns into a lot more. With a TPP, you know, project's going to be 6 months. I got to go once a week for 30 weeks.
Boom.
Boom. We got that covered. But if the job now goes on another 5 months because of delays, you know, now we got, so absolutely. Progress inspections, special inspections, budgeting, it's all part of that whole process. So as we wind this up, first, I always like to thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you. I always feel like we have more of a personal connection as well as being colleagues. I've always been fond of you and Greg for seeing this vision and bringing it to light and creating a great company and you know, recommending you to our clients.
Thank you, Sisto.
Never had a bad word, so we will continue to do that. Looking forward to having you back. And you and your beautiful family have a happy holiday.
Thank you. You too.
And look forward to seeing you in the spring.